Chapter 15. Jessie tugged at Frances's arm. "No one's going to want us," she said. Frances patted Jessie's cheek and smiled. "Jessie, love, don't always look on the gloomy side," she said. "Each train makes 3 stops, and children are chosen at each of the stops." Jessie looked more mournful than before. "Even the waifs like us?" Sighing, Frances said, "That foolish Mrs. Doman was rude and stupid to talk about children the way she did. Each of you is special and wonderful and deserves a happy home. If someone chooses us." Frances slowly shook her head, and her gaze went from Jessica to Harry to Aggie and last to Eddie. "Look at these sad faces," she says. "A short ride to Woodbridge, and your new parents. I expect you to be excited and impatient." Harry lifted his somber, tear-swollen face to Frances. "I don't care what happens to me now that I've lost Adam," he said. Frances rummaged through a reticule and pulled out a slip of paper. "Here, I've copied down the name and address of the people who took Adam to live with them," he said. "I promise you that I could give it to you so you could write to Adam." Harry grabbed the paper and stuffed it into his pocket. "But the train keeps pulling us farther and farther away. I won't be able to see Adam in school or walk to the Sabrings farm to bring him or let him know I'm still around to be his big brother and watch over him." "I understand how you feel," Frances said. "I was parted from my brothers and sisters when we rode the train west, but we wrote to each other and stayed very close and through our love for each other." She reached out to hold Harry's hand, but he jerked it away. She didn't blame him for his anger. All the adults who were involved in separating Harry and his little brother had become the enemy. "But I had to follow the rules," Frances reminded herself. "I couldn't deny a child to the Sebrings and take the chance that someone at the 3rd stop would want 2 boys. Hope shone in Eddie's eyes as he said to Frances, "I've never been a farmer, but I know a pig from a cow, and I'm quick to learn. I'm not afraid of hard work either. Maybe you could tell him that." "I'm going to brag about all of you," Frances said. Jessie sniffed. "Eddie does enough bragging about himself." As the train slowed, Frances straightened a collar, brushed down a jacket, smoothed back locks of hair. "You all look wonderful," she said. The train came to a stop, and Frances began to collect their baggage, but Aggie interrupted her, gripping Frances's arm with damp fingers. "Please," she begged in a hoarse whisper, "may I have a hair ribbon?" "Of course," Frances said, and hugged her more. She pulled the ribbon from her carpet bag and tied it to Aggie's hair. "You look lovely," Frances said, "and remember, you're always lovely on the inside, Aggie." Aggie didn't answer. Her face was pale with fear. Frances led the children to the station platform, where she was met by a tall, prosperous-looking gentleman, who introduced himself. "I'm Arthur Knowles, bank president and chairman of the local committee to approve or disapprove those who apply to adopt the orphan train children." His eyebrows rose and dipped again. "Only 4? We are hoping for more. There are at least a dozen couples who've come to the schoolhouse to meet the children." Frances smiled at her charges, but only Eddie smiled back. "Let's not keep them waiting," she said. She took a step forward, following Mr. Knowles, but stumbled as in the direct distance she saw a man she had thought was Steph. He was standing at the far end of the railway platform, one hand on his horse's reins, facing Frances. His hat was pulled down, shading his face, so Frances couldn't make out his features. She gripped Eddie's shoulder and said, "Who's that man at the far end of the station, the one with the horse?" "Can't see him," Eddie answered. "Only his pants and boots." Frances looked up quickly, but the man had moved to the other side of his horse. "If he's Seth," Frances thought, "he's trying to frighten me. But he's not Seth. He can't be. Seth has better things to do than follow me, and didn't Sheriff Malloy tell me the sheriffs along the route would to keep a lookout for him?" The man turned and squinted up at the sun as though trying to tell the time, and Frances could clearly see he was not Seth. She let out such a long sigh of relief that Mr. Knowles turned to her with a questioning look. "I have to stop worrying about Seth and what he might do," Frances scolded herself. "You coming, Miss Kelly?" Mr. Knowles asked. "Is anything wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Frances said. Standing tall, she strode after Mr. Knowles and the children in her care. All she had time to think about was finding homes for the 4 of them. As they entered the cool dimness of Woodbridge's school for the 1st through 8th grades, Frances could hear a hum of voices. "We built the meeting hall along with the school," Mr. Knowles said proudly. "It's the only school in these parts to have its own auditorium." Frances murmured something polite, but her mind was on the people who had stopped talking and turned to watch as she escorted the children on stage. She began to speak about the Children's Aid Society's Placing Out program, and she introduced the children. She mentioned not only their names and ages, but all the good things she observed about them. "I'll be down here," Frances told them as she left. "Please feel free to talk to the children. I know you'll love them when you meet them." 2 couples' disappointed expressions on their faces came to Frances. "We are hoping for a baby," one woman said. "We want our little boy around 4 or 5. One woman said, "We wanted a little boy around 4 or 5, the age of our only son. We have other older children," another woman complained. "Jessie's only 9, Frances said. "She's hoping for a mother and father to love." The woman's husband shook his head. "Too old," he said, and the 2 couples left the auditorium. But the man and woman who had been talking to Harry came to Frances. "Harry Stowe's a nice voice. The boy," the man said. He held out his hand. "I'm Luther Dunkling. This is my Mrs. Rhoda. We'd like to take Harry to live with us." Frances liked the honest happiness in the Dunklings' faces. She smiled. She beamed. "Harry is a wonderful boy. He's going to be sad for a while because his little brother was adopted at the last stop, but please be patient with him. I'm sure he'll be obedient and cooperative and will soon be happy with you." Mrs. Dunkling nodded. "I know what to do with unhappy boys. Give him lots of love." Mr. Knowles gave his approval to the Dunklings, and Frances helped them fill out the proper papers. She hugged Harry, wiping away his tears, but he stiffened, and she could feel his anger. "Harry," Frances whispered. The Dunklings are good people. They'll be good to you and make you happy. How can I be happy without Adam? Harry said. But he allowed Mr. Dunkling to take his hand as he left the building. Another couple stepped up. The man was plump, in rosy cheeks and deep laugh lines on his face. His wife was tall and thin and looked as though she rarely smiled. We're Ethel and Carl Oliver, the woman said. We've been approved by the committee. Just ask Miss Arthur Knowles. Everything's in order. We'd like to sign up to take Jessie with us. Francis glanced at Mr. Knowles, who smiled and nodded. Francis suddenly remembered that what Sheriff Malloy said about the committee members approving their best customers or best friends without question, even though they might not be the most satisfactory parents. Mrs. Oliver kept a steady gaze on Francis. Could we please sign the papers now? We have a long ride back to our farm. I have some questions first, Francis said. Do you have other children? I gave birth to 5. 2 survived childhood. They're grown off their own. What's your purpose in taking Jessie? Mrs. Oliver bristled, but Mr. Oliver chuckled. Our house is too quiet. We'd like to have a child in the house, he said. Francis took Jessie aside. Do you want to go with the Olivers? You have the choice to go or not. Jessie looked around the room. I say I didn't have much of a choice. This is the 3rd stop. No one's wanted me till now. I promise you, Jessie, I'll find you a family who would make you happy, Francis said. Jessie shrugged. The Olivers are all right. She's down in the mouth, but he laughs a lot. I'd just as soon known I'd have a home than go through all this again. Francis made sure the papers were in order and watched Jessie's still solemn face being led away. Only a few people were left in the room when an elderly couple entered. They paused, glanced around, and made their way to Aggie. The woman was arthritic and walked slowly and carefully, the man's hand under her elbow to stay her. They smiled at Aggie, and Francis sighed with relief. Their smiles were warm, their eyes were kind. Francis hurried to join them. We're Bertha and Eldon Braden, the man said. We're so glad you're here, Mrs. Braden said to Aggie. We wanted a girl. Aggie's mouth fell open in surprise. She struggled to compose herself and said, You want me? What's your name, child? Mr. Braden asked. Aggie, that is Agatha May Vaughn, Aggie answered. A beautiful name, Mr. Braden said. We live less than a mile from the school, Aggie, Mrs. Braden told her. We've always felt that learning is important. So come late in September after the harvest, when school starts up again, you'll be enrolled. How do you feel about going to school? I like to read. I'm good with numbers. Mr. Braden's eyes twinkled. I knew you would be. I could tell right off you were smart. Frances saw the corners of Aggie's lips turn down as she glanced at Mrs. Braden's twisted fingers. I know why you want me. It's to do your household chores, she said bluntly. Mrs. Braden looked surprised. Only your share, dear. It's a family. Everyone helps, she said. Aggie looked from Mrs. Braden to Mr. Braden and back again. Seemingly embarrassed by her outburst, she said, I do want to help around the house. I'm good at sewing, too. Will you come with us and be our little girl? Mrs. Braden asked. Aggie threw a quick, desperate glance at Frances. Frances knew Aggie had been hoping for young parents to love her. Frances smiled and nodded at Aggie, hoping she would get the message. There was no rule that parents had to be young. The Bradens were kind, loving people. Aggie glanced around the nearly empty room, and then at Eddie, who sat alone on one side of the stage. I'll come with you, she said. After arrangements had been made with the Bradens, Aggie surprised Frances by impulsively wrapping her in a goodbye hug. You said someone would come to check on me, she whispered. Andrew McNair will, Frances said. Promise? I promise, Frances murmured against Aggie's cheek, but I'm sure you'll want to stay with the Bradens. I have a feeling you'll be happy with them, Aggie. Aggie straightened and took a deep breath. At least I was chosen by people who wanted me. Mrs. Marklander was wrong. Frances's heart swelled at pride as she watched Aggie and the Bradens head for the door. She knew now that Aggie would have a chance to be truly happy. As soon as Aggie and the Bradens had left, Frances hurried over to Eddie. He jumped off his stool and off the stage and threw his arm around Frances and burst into tears. I can't go back to New York, he sobbed. Please, please don't send me back. No one's going to send you back, Frances said. I promise. Eddie buried his head in Frances's shoulder. You promised that someone would want me. You promised I'd have parents and a home. And with one arm, Frances held Eddie tightly. With the other hand, she reached up to wipe tears from her own eyes. Eddie, with his glib tongue and mischief written all over his face, might have put people off who wanted a dutiful, well-behaved boy, but Frances loved Eddie just the way he was. He reminded her so much of Mike. Eddie pulled back and looked up at Frances. Why don't you take me? It don't matter to me that you're not married. I won't have a father. You'll need me more because I'll be big help in the chores. I'm healthy. I'm strong. Sure, I might be small for my age, but who cares? I could do a man's work easy. Eddie, there are rules, Frances tried to explain. The society believes that children should be placed with both mothers and fathers. You work for them, Eddie said, fear in his eyes. Maybe you could talk to someone who owes you a favor. Frances sat on the edge of the stage and took his hands. That's not the way I do things, Eddie. I'm sure the people in the Children's Aid Society don't either, but there is something I can do. What? Eddie's voice dropped to a low whisper. My mother lives in St. Joe, Frances said. Let's pay her a visit. She's full of good ideas. Frances grinned. And advice, too. And while we're there, we can talk to Andrew McNair. He's the agent in charge, and between us, we'll find you a happy home. She stood and walked over to Mr. Knowles. Do you know when the next train to St. Joe comes through? He looked at his watch. Not till 4 o'clock, but as you know, it's a short trip, less than an hour. She looked at Eddie. I don't know that St. Joe is a scheduled stop for the Orphan Train riders. It isn't, Frances said. My mother lives in St. Joe. I'd like to spend a few days with her. Mr. Knowles nodded. I'll finish the paperwork, and I'll see the two of you have a good dinner, and I'll take you to the depot. Under his breath, he said to Frances, Do you think you'll find a home for the lad? I know I will, said Frances, but her heart gave a thump. 3 groups of people had been unable to see Eddie's special qualities, his good humor, high-spiritedness, and quickness of mind, the very qualities she treasured in her brother Mike. However, she would find a good home for Eddie. She had to. The promise she had made had not been just to Eddie, it had been to herself.